Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Yeah, thank you for inviting me again. My name is Tiffany Kuo. I'm a professor of music. I teach at a community college. It's in LA County. It's called Mount San Antonio College, Mount SAC. And I also teach at the Colburn Conservatory. All right, so today we have a beautiful program, right? It's titled Homage. What a beautiful, beautiful name. I just want to think about that. And even the word, to say the word homage, right? So we pay respect to a lot of people in this world, right? We pay respect to elders, we pay respect to those who come before us. And this idea of the homage, right? Learning from those before us. Sometimes we learn it consciously. We might be referencing or reinterpreting what we learn from our mentors, from our elders, their messages, reinterpreting and their teaching again and again. And at times, we also think in terms of subconsciously, maybe the seeds that they have planted in us are nurturing and growing like plants. And maybe some of those ideas will blossom later on, right? And so I call this a creative continuum because we're always reflecting on the past and always growing towards the future. And so today's program, this idea of homage, is really wonderful because it's two conversations. There's a conversation between two composers in the first half and another set of conversations in the second half. So let's look at them. So in the first half of the recital, starts with composer Henry Purcell or Purcell, depending on whether you want to be English or American, up to you. And he is from the 17th century, and so this is the Baroque period. And then you're going to hear a piece by Henry Purcell, and that's the man on the left with the wig. And then right after that, this piece is going to be paired with a composer from the 20th century, Benjamin Britten, right? 300 years later, a modernist. So a modernist is going to pay a historical homage to Henry Purcell. And you'll hear this pairing, and that is Benjamin Britten on the right with the photograph. In the second half of the concert, so this is now after intermission, there'll be another pairing. And this pairing is closer, right? As you can see, you have Tchaikovsky and Arensky. Yes, their names rhyme because they're both from Russia. And they're from similar periods, right? They're from the later 19th century. And yes, Arensky was a bit younger. He was 20 years younger, 21 years younger, as you could see. And he does live into the 20th century. And Tchaikovsky was Arensky's mentor. Not an official mentor, so Arensky did not study officially with Tchaikovsky, but because later in life, they happened to both be in Moscow when Arensky was a professor of music, of composition and counterpoint in the Moscow Conservatory. By then, Tchaikovsky had already retired, but they were in Moscow together, and so they were among similar circles. And Tchaikovsky, sort of unofficially mentored Arensky. And so you'll hear a pair of works, similarly, just like the first half, but much closer, right? Syntax, the musical language is more similar. And it's yet another tribute. Arensky writes the last piece you will hear a year after Tchaikovsky has passed away. So it's very much in memory of. So it's a memorial homage. Okay. So I thought, how should I sort of give you an entry point into this recital? Because I was thinking a lot, and I'm going to be really honest. I've been playing a lot with AI, and I talk to my chatbots that I make, and I was giving it ideas and talking to it, and all of a sudden came up with a pretty good idea. So I don't want to, it's not me, it is a chatbot's idea. And I thought maybe I would pair music with another art form, something that wouldn't clutter your mind with sounds, because you're going to go into the recital hall and you're going to listen to so much music. And what would be a way to contextualize what you're going to hear, right? But visually, art. Yeah? So now, if our pairing in the first half is a Baroque artist with a modernist artist, 300 years apart. And if my analogy is the visual art, whom do you think I am thinking of for this analogy, this pairing. It's kind of like an SAT question. So like Purcell is to Britain as X is to Y. You guys are some of the smartest audience people I know. So I'm going to give you a few seconds. I know you're very, very intelligent. So this is the Baroque period. I'm going to give you a hint. Spain. So Baroque and modern. So now we're thinking the Baroque artist, his last name starts with a V. Yes, I knew you guys would get it. And the modernist starts also Spanish. Almost. Picasso. And do you know the painting I'm thinking of? Who has it? Who has the painting? It's the one Velázquez likes to paint a lot of his subjects from the court, the royal court, right? And he was infatuated with the princess, the Infanta. Ah, Las Meninas, sí. Bravo. Okay, so yes, that is my pairing. So I'm going to sort of give you a visual analogy, and then from that, we're going to go into the music. Okay? So let's begin with Velázquez. This is a self-portrait. It's a wonderful self-portrait, yes? So what do we know about Velázquez? He did work, and I'm only giving you 1 point because this is not an art lecture. But yes, he is from the 16th century. He did work for the Spanish court of King Philip IV. He was incredibly well known as a portraiture, right, painter. I mean, everybody wanted him to paint them, right, including the Pope. Right? There's a wonderful one of Pope Innocent X. Okay, so the work that I want you to think of is, yes, Las Meninas. This is an incredible, dense, complex, beautiful work of art. Art historians, art critics, artists have been obsessed with this work for centuries, literally centuries. Picasso was obsessed with this work, and that is the point, right? We start with the Baroque. You start with the subject. The subject will not change, right? So what do I mean by the subject? So once again, you have the princesa, the Infanta Margarita in the front. And then you have a lot of people around her, right? Kind of an entourage. See? Las Meninas. ¿Qué es las Meninas? Right, those around her, the maids, right? Those are servants. So you have two of them. También, you have sort of other people in the court. So during the Baroque period, you would have dwarfs, and the concept is that the dwarfs were sort of smaller people, and they would be companions of the princess or the prince. Okay, so you have two of them. You also have a pet, a dog, right, in the foreground. And we're going to move counterclockwise because there's so much going on in this painting. Right? I'm going to move counterclockwise, and you see two people in the back. Yes? One is a religious figure, and the other one is probably another member of the court. We keep moving now, right? And now you have this man in the doorway. And he's kind of like holding open the curtain, right? Letting the light in. You're thinking like, why is he in there? And now your mind starts to wonder, why is Velázquez painting everybody, right? And then your eyes flows towards what? This framed something. And this is what everyone has talked about. Is it a mirror or is it a painting? If it's a mirror, well, we definitely see who's in it. You have the king and the queen in it, right? If it's a mirror, that means they are where you are, correct? And if they are where you are, then your eyes are going to move towards him. And that, of course, is Velázquez, Diego Velázquez. And then your eyes definitely is now looking at this huge canvas, right? And hence the incredible density and the just complexity and the beauty of this painting, because now you're like, oh, okay, I get it, right? Velázquez is painting one of them or both of them, and the entourage has come to the studio to be like, hey, where's all the action going, right? And everyone's in on the action, right? And then you go, wait, but why did Velázquez paint what's in back of him? Because where is this painting? You like it? It's a beautiful, and so people have talked about this forever, and I've just like hit the surface. You can read all about it. Okay, so are you obsessed? Right. Everybody was obsessed, including Picasso. So this is only one of, I think, 45 versions of this. There are 45 versions based directly on Las Meninas, and 13 more on just sort of specific subjects within this work. You recognize it immediately because the subjects stayed exactly the same. You can see every one of them, right? Just do the thing that I just did, La Infanta, Las Meninas, El Perro, right? The dwarves, the religious figures, the guy with the cape, the portrait, and I like how Velázquez is huge here. So Picasso's like, I know who's important, right? It ain't La Infanta, it's Velázquez is important. So this is only one of, like I said, 45. And the entire collection is actually in one place. They're all in the Picasso Museum in Barcelona. So if you want to go, you can go. Okay, I'm going to show you a few more, right? Just because, he did 45. So here you can see the sketch. You can really see, like, okay, the subjects are staying the same, but the syntax, the idiom is going to change because Picasso is 300 years later. The way he paints, the way he conjures and thinks about his subject, that he wants to convey his subject, is very different. I want you to think about that as we go towards the music. All right, so you have this one on the right, which is just, it is the Picasso, right, sort of study of the original. Here is a colorful version of it. Right? There are many more. And then, like I said, there's 13 more related works. And so many of those are just of the Infanta. He was obsessed, that is, Velázquez was obsessed with the Infanta. And Picasso similarly was obsessed with the Infanta. Wonderful, isn't it? Right. So once again, subject is same. Idiom, syntax is modernized. All right. Now we're ready for the music, yeah? Now that I got your brain all worked up, yeah? Good, okay. So you got Baroque, you got modern, right? If you want to see it side by side. Very similar, but syntax different. All right, so let's start with Henry Purcell. So I'm just giving you just the bare minimum facts, but these facts are important because they are also analogous to Velázquez's biography. He too was a court employee. He too was from that aristocratic patronage tradition of the 17th century, except he was in England. And he started as a boy in a choir in the Royal Chapel. And then when he rose up in ranks, he played the violin. And when his sort of leader, the violinist who led the king's violins, passed away, he took over, and he was only 18. So here we have also a Baroque court artist, right? And he composed for the court. Now the piece you're going to listen to is called Chaconne in G minor. And you're like, hey, you spelled that wrong. No, I didn't. It's been anglicized. So there's different ways of spelling Chaconne. You can think of the Chaconne as kind of like a Passacaglia. What is it? It's first and foremost, it is a dance. It is in triple meter, right? And it was a very popular dance. It wasn't also just a dance that was popular in Spain and Italy and throughout continental Europe. It was also very popular in the New World in Mexico. So I just had to throw that in there. Okay. But he decided to anglicize the title Chaconne with a Y. So we can say Chaconne if you like. And he composes actually very early in his career. You can see he's only about 19 or 20 years old. All right, so the Chaconne is very famous for its bass line. You can think of Purcell's possibly the most famous Chaconne that he wrote from Dido and Aeneas. It's an opera, right? And that would be When I Am Laid in Earth, on Earth. This Chaconne is similar in that respect. It also has a very prominent bass line, and then it's also been realized. So I want you to think of the Chaconne as the subject. Remember what the subject was in the art? And then we'll talk about the syntax, okay? So now this is gonna be, I'm gonna play for you the 8 measures of just the bass line, and then I'm gonna play the realization of it as Purcell has written it for us. All right. And I'm going to double the bass line, just in case you're thinking like, why is she doubling? Now the realization. So you heard the bass line with the realization. And that is the basis of a chaconne, is this sort of triple meter, and you can hear it very steadily and very stately, right? This one is a little bit more sort of stately than a dance. And you hear that rhythm of the 1, 2, the 1, 2, the 1, 2. Now that's going to be our subject. So previously there were people, now it's a dance. You got that? All right, so now we're going to go to Britain. Okay. So here now is our modernist composer, or a modern artist, who is equally obsessed with the Baroque period. He studied everything there is of Purcell, everything. He is from the 20th century. He is British as well. So you like my pairing, right? We have Spanish, British, English, British. Okay. He wrote about Purcell, and he wrote about that specific chaconne piece. Specifically of Purcell, he was so obsessed, right? He says, he's the last important international figure of English music. I mean, that's a huge declaration, right? And then he called him Orpheus Britannicus. It's like, God save Purcell, right? I mean, that's possibly the biggest compliment, right? Wouldn't you want to be called Orpheus Americana, maybe? And specifically on the chaconne, and he studied it, really, he said the ending, so it's a series of variations, right? He says the ending is so remarkable. It's a pathetic variation. And I wanted to use that word pathetic because it's that sort of older English, right, of pathos, right, of so much emotion. Right? And so when you hear both the Britons' work as well as Purcell's chaconne, you'll hear that emotiveness in there as the variations transform one after another. All right, so you guys remember what it was like before the chaconne? Dum, bum, da-dum, dum. Okay. So now I'm going to play for you the theme of the theme and variation, which is embedded in the third movement of the string quartet written by Britten. Okay. And it was written on the anniversary of Purcell's 250th death. Could be birth. I'm going to check that in a second. But I'm going to play this for you, and this is in unison, so it's already different. So he's using the chaconne as the subject, right? But he's not taking the melody. He's taking the concept of the chaconne and the rhythmic pattern, and he's going to build on that. So I'm just playing the theme. I'm also going to play the theme doubled, but when you hear it later on, it will be in unison. I'm using it double so that you can just hear it more prominently. You hear the pairing? Right. You now, okay, so let's recap. I like to recap. It's kind of slightly complex, hopefully not too much so. So you have this lovely pairing of music, right? It's a historical homage, a conversation across 300 years between Purcell and Benjamin Britten through this concept of a chaconne. And what I'm trying to get you to think of is also that this was happening in different forms of art, particularly in the visual art. A lot of modernist composers were, artists were equally obsessed with the art of the Baroque period. And here you have this one, a very clear one between Picasso and Velázquez. And if you want to know more, I have like so many more that ChatGPT gave me that were great. Does anybody like Francis Bacon? Yes. The Screaming Pope? That was a good one, okay. But I thought I would scare you with the Screaming Pope. So I went with them like, just a little bit more like chill. Plus this is Spanish. Bacon was English and then, anyway. All right, let's move on to the second half. So in the second half, it's a little different. It's no longer a historical homage, it's more of like in memory of, because they knew each other, right? So in the first piece you're gonna hear is by Tchaikovsky, and the second piece you'll hear is by Arensky. And similarly in this half, Arensky is writing as a tribute to the first composer, and that is Tchaikovsky. And so just once again, Tchaikovsky precedes Arensky by about 20 years. They were not official mentor-mentees, rather they sort of became friends later in life in Moscow, sort of hung out in the same circles. And Tchaikovsky was very generous with Arensky and did give him sort of advice. Now, what's my pairing? Okay, first of all, it's not art. Yeah. Okay. And we're in La Jolla. My favorite building in La Jolla is the Salk Institute. Oh, I know, right? Louis Kahn. I know. It's really one of the most beautiful buildings in this world. It's just down the street from you. Please go visit if you haven't, if you go there all the time. I'm so envious. Now, the mentee, I decided, there were a lot of mentees, but I decided to take one, or to choose one, and I agree with Chat on this one too, that was not sort of obvious, because they weren't direct sort of mentor-mentees. And so this one is sort of a distance. So how many people know of Tadao Ando, the Japanese architect? Yeah, another beautiful artist, right? Absolutely gorgeous. Hopefully he'll construct something in La Jolla too. I think that would be amazing. All right, so let's start with Louis Kahn. Oh, breathless, absolutely breathless, right? I mean, just look at this. And so here, the difference in the second half, in my opinion, the analogy is that the syntax is the same, but the subject is different. So what I mean by syntax is that what makes this like complex so glorious is his use of concrete. So concrete here is going to be our syntax. Okay. I don't even know what to say because you've all been there, yeah? So you have this beautiful, water feature that runs in the middle. It goes straight into the ocean, and that would be the west. And presumably you would watch the sunset, and it would just be like this magnificent, real experience. It's really an experience. In any Kahn building, it's an experience. All right, and of course, his use of concrete is possibly, this was like so ahead of his time, right? So he was a disciple of Corbusier from Switzerland, and then he took it even further. He took that concrete and he really mastered it. So it's bare. If you think about concrete, we think the sidewalk, maybe your garage, right? But he made this into a masterpiece. It's absolutely beautiful. It's bare, but you just think that is the most beautiful thing, right? The most beautiful material there is. And these tie holes are just like perfect. And the way he uses light and shadow, right? As you walk through the different hallways of the Salk Institute, you see that light and that shadow. Similarly, right? As you walk through this entrance, grand entrance. Here are some other shots from it. Absolutely gorgeous. And so now, the pairing. We have Tadao Ando. So if you don't know about Ando, Ando is a Japanese architect. He's still alive. He was born in 1941. He was a self-taught architect, and he studied the just all the architectures of the world, right? So he learned about architecture by studying it. Very similar to how many artists do study the works of sort of their contemporaries as well as their predecessors. And this is where chat really did help me out. I wasn't sure which building I should cite, and it said the Church of Light. And do you see it? So first and foremost, we have the syntax, once again, is the same, right? So what's so beautiful about Ando's architecture is that he then takes that concrete, he takes that syntax, and he makes it even more smooth. He makes it even more interesting. He thinks about the light even more, and the light and the shadow. So this is a church. It is a working church. I mean, he built it for the people. It's outside of the Osaka city, so Osaka Prefecture, so it's like a suburb outside of Osaka. And it was completed in 1989. People wanted to see it so much that they had to stop because they couldn't get all the tourism. Right? I noticed that with the Salk Institute, you have to make an appointment now. You can't just kind of walk in and disturb everybody, the scientists at work. So this is the Church of Light. It's not very big, as you can see, but the concept is very similar, right? The syntax is very similar. You have this straight, sort of narrow passageway, right? Going towards the light, right? Having the light and this void, and you're walking towards the crucifix, towards the light, and it's just a simple cutout of this crucifix. This is the view from the other side. So there's sort of a little bit more window on one side. If you're looking at the crucifix, the light is on the right side. And then this is the outside, right? Sort of very plain. Right? And this work, I think, is more introspective. Right? The other one is very grand and very sort of, with the concrete. And so if we were to put it side by side, right, you can really see the mentor-mentee influence. You can see that the syntax is the same. The use of the concrete is very similar, right? With Ando, it's horizontal. With Kan, it's vertical, but uses those ties as a sort of, that's the decoration. Right? You don't need to paint over their concrete, right? Here, the ties are also used as like a sort of slight decoration. Very minimalist, right? But a wonderful way of thinking about how the mentor-mentee relationship work. Yeah. Okay. So now musically, we have Tchaikovsky and Arensky. So what you'll hear, actually, with Tchaikovsky is a work for violin and piano right after the first half. And it's a beautiful piece that's sort of like in loving memory of what Tchaikovsky was when he was in Switzerland. And it's a sort of a beautiful melody. Tchaikovsky was known to write a lot of memorable melodies, right? The Nutcracker, everybody? Anybody? All right. And Arensky was very much in awe of that. The melodies that Tchaikovsky wrote really are some of the most memorable ones. And so the year after Tchaikovsky dies, Arensky composed this work sort of in honor of. So this is a memorial homage. And he embeds one of Tchaikovsky's beautiful songs, an original song, a children's song, in the second movement of his second string quartet. And that becomes a theme to the variations that you'll hear. So this is the concluding work of the recital that you'll be listening to. So the question, so you're actually not going to hear the song because you'll hear a different piece. So I thought it would be great to get to know about this song. So it's a children's song. And here you have the original lyrics in Russian. And on the left is the English. And in fact, the English lyrics is the original. So the English poetry is the original. It's an original poem by Richard Henry Stoddard. It was translated into Russian, and then Tchaikovsky set it to music. Okay. And the lyrics are really, really beautiful, and you can imagine why Arensky chose these lyrics, or chose this song, as a memorial. So I thought we would read it together. The young child Jesus had a garden, full of roses, rare and red. And thrice a day he watered them to make a garland for his head. When they were full blown in the garden, he called the Jewish children there, and each did pluck himself a rose until they stripped the garden bare. And now how will you make your garland? For not a rose your path adorns. But you forget, he answers them, that you have left me still the thorns. They took off the thorns and made a garland and placed it on his shining head. And where the roses should have shone were little drops of blood instead. It's an absolutely beautiful poem in honor, right, of someone who came before you. Even if you're not religious, you can sort of think in terms of what the memories are and what does it mean for someone to sacrifice something before you. It's really this wonderful homage, yes, a religious one, but at the same time, it's also a musical one that you will listen to. So I thought to end today, if you will allow me to play a little piano, I'm kind of like the pre-show band, yeah? I'm not as good as them, but I warm up and I make them look good. And since you're not going to hear the song, I thought I'd play the original song for you. I won't sing, I'll just play it, okay? And I will do a little variation on it if you will let me. Yeah. Okay, so this is, I'm going to leave this up here for you to enjoy. You're going to hear a much more better version of that with the Rensky and with the string quartet. All right, so here it is. Let's just wrap it up all up, yeah? Just so that you kind of have something to go in there with. All right, you're now prepared, yes. We have the Baroque with the modern in the first half, Purcell, followed by Benjamin Britten, okay? And in the second half, and that was the historical homage, and then in the second half, you have sort of a mentor-mentee homage, right? Same syntax, different subject. In the first half, same subject, different syntax. All right, you guys have been wonderful. Thank you so much for coming to the lecture. Enjoy the show.